watching you. Corpses hanging outside. Go away.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Talking with Shadows, and thank you so much for joining us for our second episode, here with your host, Vic Whateley.
And Marcus D. And guys, we want to give a big thank you to everybody who checked out our very first episode. All of the feedback we got from it was fantastic. Thank you guys so much. And we want to give a big thank you to all of our patrons who helped make this possible now. Just give you guys a couple quick shout outs. Thank you so much to Caleb, John, Ray, Red, Ricky, and Sarah. We love you guys so much for helping support the channel.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
So we thought it would be a lot of fun to read some of the comments that you guys left for our very first episode. Me and Vic would kind of respond a little bit back to what you guys commented on our first video. So Jody Smith commented, "What the hell is Zoidberging?"
Oh my goodness, how do you guys not know what Zoidberging is? It's a reference to a really popular cartoon from like some time ago called Futurama. There's a character called Zoidberg, and he would always run away going, whoop, 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 whoop.
You sound so old saying this cartoon from so long ago.
Oh my goodness.
It's on TV now.
It is brilliant. I think they still run it on Comedy Central, maybe. I almost cried when they stopped doing new episodes. It was a brilliant show. It was hilarious. It's done by some of the guys who did The Simpsons. It's just really, really smart and really, really funny.
But thank you so much for asking that, because it made Vic feel so old, and I just could not stop laughing.
Oh my goodness.
Whenever I read that off to him. Austin Lee Austin Lee said, "You guys should do a podcast where you revisit some of your older cases and perhaps even throw in any new evidence that you guys have."
Actually, that's one of the things we did at the end of the first episode, but that's in our extended content, and it's just for our Patreon, so sorry, man.
But I do love the idea of actually in some of our later podcasts kind of bringing up some of the stuff that we've gone over before. I think that actually does sound kind of fun.
Yeah, we actually went back and revisited the Crawfordsville monster case from here in Indiana and kind of explored some new ideas on it.
Matthew Weiss, I think I said that right, said, "Now, this video just gave me an idea, but first things first, great job, guys. Love the video." Thank you so much, Matthew. What about the idea of the belief in the urban myth is what most of these creatures survive on, and that's why they enter remote populated environments? I really do believe that there is a need for interaction for them to us, and maybe the thinking or knowing they exist is what feeds and sustains their lives. Hence the exposure of flying cryptids or the fear that black-eyed kids and shadow people evoke. Just spitbaiting now, this would make for an interesting story if they are shapeshifters of sort. Like the perspective of their life told. Hopefully someone tells me what they think of these thoughts, so I don't feel like a crazy person.
No, and I think this is a great thing to bring up. So often in these cases, it seems like their goal is a level of human interaction or human reaction. And the idea that that somehow sustains them is a really neat idea. One theory that could possibly even back that up would be if most of these things are tulpas. Tulpas are thought forms made manifest, and that's just kind of the quick way of explaining it. But one of the things that sustains them is their ability to make other people believe that they're real. So, and I think that's a really neat idea.
Mm-hmm. Maximilian Rex Carpe Diem. That was an awesome name.
Carpe diem.
Carpe diem.
It's Latin, don't slaughter it.
My bad.
It's already dead lame, so you don't have to kill it further.
Just ran over it with my literary truck. All right. They said, "I swear you guys had the same conversation in the Black Eyed Kids video about shooting one of them. LOL. I believe that because I totally don't understand why more stories don't involve people pulling out their guns to shoot these cryptids or these weird entities. I don't know. But what was it? Hashtag don't tread on me, Black Eyed Kids."
Oh my goodness, you're going to end up shooting a kid, man.
No, I am not. I think I can tell the difference between a legit monster and just some kid running around the street trying to be a jerk.
I don't know, a lot of people who do have guns at their access when they confront a cryptid, they often say what keeps them from pulling the trigger is that they seem so human. I mean, you mainly get that in, like, Bigfoot cases, but I imagine that could be true about others.
This also could just be a good reason why I should own a gun, probably. I'm probably just not responsible with it.
I don't trust you with one.
I wouldn't trust me either if that's maybe my first reaction if something scares me.
I'm all about people having the right to bear arms, but I just would feel safer if you personally don't.
You're probably right. So we should I think we should jump into our topic for today, because today we're talking about beyond human. We're talking about supernatural humans, humans that have supernatural abilities.
So gather around, believers in the paranormal, and hear the tale of humans with abnormal abilities. Sorry, guys. I'm a big Stan Lee fan, and he used to start all of his old comic books like that.
It was kind of weird. Me and Vic approached this in very different ways. I think we realized that when we came in for our planning session.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you brought this up, I'm like, I know what to start researching. So I started just researching humans that have abnormal abilities, which is not the direction you went.
It is not. I researched more like government programs where they were harnessing people's superpowers and stuff like that. It kind of showed how we approach the paranormal very differently.
So I'm over here assembling the real life Justice League, and you're over there diving down the conspiracy hole theory.
No, I am investigating Katniss. Like, yeah, that's how we approach this. I'm, being worried about the government coming and rounding up all the people with supernatural abilities.
I'm forming my own team. They're going to be awesome.
I'm just not going to tell anybody if I have a supernatural power, because that makes me more scared the government's going to come and black bag me.
And I'm going to become a superhero.
And I'm going to be some sort of government agent with a superpower.
I mean, both could be cool. Okay, where do we want to jump in at?
Let's start with, one of the coolest things that I love about studying the paranormal is I love studying like the government projects into looking into people with supernatural abilities. It's one of the coolest things to delve into. I love watching movies like that. I love watching shows about that kind of stuff.
So, quick question. Do you think there's actually like a government agency going around doing the Nick Fury thing? Like if there's people out there with not only extra human abilities, but really useful extra human abilities, trying to go out and secure them as assets and things like that?
100%. I 100% believe that if the government believed they could benefit from humans with supernatural abilities, that they would utilize them. 100%.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me.
I mean, there's even cases where the government has even come forward and said, this is what we did with people with superhuman abilities. Like, we used psychics to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, but do you think they're actually like going out and pulling like a Nick Fury assemble sort of situation, or do you think they're just like, hey, you're gonna toe the line with us whether you like it or not?
Oh, it's probably more of a strong arming thing. I mean, I think it depends. I think it depends on the government. I think it depends on how they approach it. They'll probably approach it with any way. I think maybe some people probably approach it with the idea of you're helping your country, you're helping keeping us safe from our enemies. I 100% believe that. Like, if you look at, say, the Soviet Union's investigation into psychic activities, going back all the way to the 1920s, I think is kind of where I started looking for this podcast. They started it was a University of Leningrad, I think is where it started, and they started pulling in all of these psychics or people with these abilities, telling them, you're helping Mother Russia, you're helping us fight the evil West by doing this.
Yeah, I really bet they come at you way more honey than vinegar at first, because they really want to secure that asset and they want that asset to stick around for a while. But I bet you if you start turning them down, I bet you they start pouring on that vinegar real quick.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they probably feel, well, if you have these abilities, this could be a threat to us and we just can't be, leaving these threats around.
And yeah,
wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Or probably more like wink, wink, click, click. Like,
yeah, that's the big part. If you're a valuable asset, I mean, they definitely want you, but even more than that, they're probably afraid of you falling into another group's hands. So first, they're probably going to try to secure you, the nice way, and then the not so nice way.
Yeah, and I really like looking into those because when you really look into government-backed paranormal projects, the big bulk of them, you're going to get psychics or people with psychokinesis abilities, and honestly, if anybody who's ever looked into the material, they know that is some of my most favorite stuff to look at in the paranormal of any sort of subject, psychic phenomenon. Because I really do believe that there are probably psychics that are out there. So
yeah, me too.
Yeah, so I love seeing these things, and one of my favorite people to look at in history was Nina Kolodnia. She's the poster child for Cold War Soviet psi research and stuff. She was this housewife that got recruited by the KGB, the Soviet government, to study psychokinesis because she found when she was a kid, she saw that her mother had these abilities to move objects with her mind, and she wanted to see if she could do it too. And she found out when she was getting angry, that things would just fly away from her. So she practiced really hard trying to hone her skills, and by the time that she was in her 20s, 30s maybe, I think, was about the time that she ends up in Leningrad at this research facility. And there's tons of videos of her out there where she's doing stuff like moving glassware across a table, moving matches. I think at one point she like separates like the white part of an egg and the yolk of an egg separate, like in a glass jar. It's really weird, cool stuff.
Yeah, but didn't it take like this huge toll on her? Wouldn't it like push her pulse up into like around 200, and often like her body would just be physically wrecked? When you watch the videos of it, you can tell this is a lady in a certain degree of distress. And supposedly, like afterwards, she would have lost weight. She'd go into this kind of trauma mode where she'd have to kind of fall back and recover.
Yeah, it even took her like 2 to 4 hours probably to even do some of the simplest feats of psychokinesis. And even like it just looks like she is in pain when she is trying to do this stuff.
And it's not like she's like lifting a car. She's literally like scooting around salt shakers, moving matchsticks, and it looks like it's pretty. It takes a lot of energy for her to do it.
And it's weird. And I watched the videos. And anybody who knows about this, one of the first things they would try to throw out is, oh, she's doing it with magnets. You use magnets to manipulate this.
Actually, that was about what I was going to ask you if you thought that it was real footage or not.
When I watch the footage, I'm telling you, it looks like the wood part of the matches is what's moving. Because if it's going to be a magnet, it's probably in the head of the match, I think. Because when we watch it, they look black.
Yeah.
But it's black and white footage. But like something, maybe that's where the metallic part is that it's being pulled by. But it looks like the wood part is moving, is the part that's moving, which I don't think is where the metal's going to be. And also, there's one where there's like a ball that she's got bouncing around in the thing, and that doesn't look like that's going to be magnetized. It looks like it's just bouncing inside the glass jar.
And as far as psychic footage, it is some of the more convincing stuff in my opinion. You can go on YouTube and see some psychic footage where you're like, wow, I can see exactly how you're doing that. This could very easily be faked. And I'm not saying that this footage is unfakeable. It probably could be done. But, I mean, it kind of has that thing where it strikes me a little bit true. It seems more realistic.
But one of the things that stuck out at me when you look at her story, this story of Nina, is the very last footage of her trying to use her powers. It doesn't work. If this lady was really a fake her entire life, she'd be a pro by this point of being able to manipulate this. And if she really was, say, like a shell for the Russian government, of them trying to just lie to say that they have these psychics that are there, they wouldn't let her fail like that in her last footage.
Yeah, like I actually didn't know about that. I've watched footage of her, but I haven't seen this last video before. But this makes a lot of sense. If it's that intensive on her body, well, she's going to deteriorate in her ability, particularly as she starts to get older, where instead a charlatan's going to learn better tricks as they go on. Mm-hmm. So that potentially adds some credibility to it.
Absolutely. And it wasn't even just her. Like, she wasn't even the only person that they claimed that had these superpowers. It was so cool because I found some people that I had never heard of before that were around the same time. There was a guy named Vladimir Dorovs, I think is how you say his name, and he was at their institute, and one of the things that he had was this weird bond with his dog. I think his dog's name was Pikki, P-I-K-K-I, I think I said that right. But anyway, what they found was he was able to the dog was able to perform commands, like predetermined commands that they had told him to do, without him moving, without him saying anything to this dog. And they just couldn't find another way about how this dog was doing these feats they wanted him to do.
Did they do a lot of testing on him?
Yeah. The dog, he was already, now, in all fairness, him and this dog were in a circus together, and the dog was very well trained to be kind of a circus performer and perform tricks. But when they brought him in, one of the things that he would do, like in circuses and stuff, was he would have whistles, and he would blow whistles and do commands, and the dog would do these tricks. But whenever they brought him in, he would even perform these tricks without doing these whistles or just standing there, whatever they wanted him to do. They just said, do this particular trick. Huh. And then he would look at the dog and he would do it.
Like, did they ever get to test him in, like, laboratory settings?
Yeah, in Leningrad. But the heart, and again, this is one of the biggest critiques of the Soviet Cold War PSYOPs era, was a lot of their studies did not have good controls. That's one of the big, and I'll admit that they didn't have a whole lot of controls, so some of their stuff was difficult to replicate. But just some of the stuff that they said was weird.
I know there's a lot of theories going out there that the whole thing was basically a psyops play against the U.S. too.
Of them trying to come up with some sort of way in order to get a hand up on the United States at the time.
Going back a little bit, was she the lady that would do the thing with the frog heart trying to stop it?
Yeah, that's like one of her most powerful feats that she ever did. It was March 10th, 1972, I want to say was when she did it. Yeah, I'm gonna say that was when it was. I could be wrong on the last date, but they brought her into a lab and they had this frog suspended in like a solution, and they hooked the frog up to some electrodes and they had her sitting there, and she was able to both speed up and slow the frog's heart rate. And then at the very end of it, she just stopped the frog's heart.
And this was like a training for a psyops assassination program, right?
Yeah, a lot of people believe that that's what it's for. They were trying to do it, and I hear mixed results. And some people say that she attempted to do this on a person. Other people said that she claimed that she couldn't actually do this on a person. I've heard both. I've heard both stories on that, but I totally believe that they were probably trying to see if this could be utilized in some sort of a weapon, like a weaponized against a person.
And it's neat how when you look at the U.S. programs and the Soviet programs of that era on how we were trying to utilize psychic powers, and the Soviets, for the most part, they seemed like they were generally trying to weaponize it, where the U.S. was mainly trying to use it for espionage and observation sort of things.
Yeah, well, I think it came a lot of with their approach to the theory about how it works, because the Soviet Union research, they said, or they had this belief that there was something called bioenergenetics. Yeah, I said that right. Or there was this energy that was given off by all living things, and all living things.
This is that field that they would say existed around everybody, right?
And then these people could manipulate this field around people, and that could be utilized in some sort of way.
Yeah, because the belief was that she wasn't so much moving the salt shaker with her mind; it was that she was using the field from around her to adjust the field around the salt shaker.
Yes, and manipulate and move it, manipulate it.
And didn't they believe this was somehow attached to solar flares and things like that too?
Yeah, and she also, I think she said too that if bad weather would prevent her from being able to use some of her abilities.
That's kind of a really out there take on psychic ability.
It is. It's different.
I guess it's something that I'm not really used to hearing about. And I have heard about it in these sort of cases, but it strikes me as being very sort of odd.
Another guy that I really liked too that they had was a guy named Konstantin Polantov. Man, some of these names are really hard to pronounce. He was a really cool guy. He was a guy that they brought in, and he had the ability. He claimed that he could literally make somebody fall asleep. Like they brought him into a large room of people. The person that was his target did not know that they were going to put him to, that he was this they were going to get put to sleep, and then he would literally just with energy make somebody immediately fall asleep. And that was a really cool fascinating story that I found from that. I didn't find a whole lot more information on that guy. I just thought that was really cool because when you research back into that, Nina is the one that always comes up so often. I just wanted to kind of throw a few more of those people out there.
Okay. I know you're really interested in spontaneous human combustion.
Oh my gosh, yes. Absolutely.
And one of the things I've always wondered about spontaneous human combustion, do you think it's just like people who are pyrokinetic just out there walking around accidentally setting people on fire?
No, I don't, because I think it could actually have something to do with this aura that people were talking about, because a lot of stuff that people don't know about Nina was that sometimes whenever she would use some of her other abilities that weren't really known, like one of the things she could do was they would have photographic paper, and she could stare at something, and then at the paper, and then create an outline on that paper. But when she would do this and manipulate this, oftentimes she would start getting burns on her hands, and in one instance, her actual clothes caught on fire when she did this.
Oh God, I know from some of her interviews, she would talk about how she'd get this hot energy coming up from the base of her spine, moving up her body while she's trying to control her psychic abilities, and result kind of coalescing around her head, giving her really intense headaches, really intense pains. It kind of shut her down for a while.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people think when you talk about say spontaneous human combustion that the body just just explodes. But actually, people from like say like Eastern philosophies that believe in chi, like an internal body energy, believe that what actually ends up happening is you end up getting a chi imbalance, or your energy like goes out of whack or whatever, and this is what causes that combustion.
You have a destabilization creating too much yang energy.
Yeah, and so maybe what's happening is if you're tapping into that energy field around you in a way that you don't know what you're doing, or it's too much because you're exerting too much, that's what causes this combustion to happen. I know, it's just a weird thought. We brought it up talking about spontaneous human combustion, and I actually almost forgot about that story about Nina because it's something that not a lot of people talk about.
Sorry, I just got stuck in this realm. Every time I hear people talking about like chi balances and yang chi, I keep thinking about this Chinese mental disorder that it just pretty much occurs there because that's the main place where the belief in this is, where people go through their whole life as shut-ins and never masturbate and things like that because they're afraid that it'll deplete their yang energy and shorten their life. I saw a documentary on it and it's just stuck with me. It's just the weirdest thing. I wish I knew what it was called off the top of my head so I could share it with you guys. But like I just went to that in my head.
I really hope that nobody out there gets a chi imbalance and it causes them to spontaneously human combust. So do whatever you have to do to keep yourself from spontaneously human combusting. Whatever that's going to take.
Dear God. Okay. If you could have any of like the standard PK range of psychic powers, like you yourself, what would you want?
Does invisibility count?
No, invisibility is. I do not believe invisibility is in that a range of psychic powers.
What would I want? I want the ability to move objects. I would love the ability to like just be able to move objects from one place or another because I really hate getting off the couch. And if I can just go, just wah, 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 and a friggin' beer flies into my hand, I would be a much happier person. I'd be a much fatter person, but I would be a much happier person.
So you want telekinesis for the purposes of laziness?
Yes. Just so that it would make my life easier. And then I could just have party tricks, just flick my finger or snap my fingers and the top of the beer flies off. The beer cap falls off. What about you?
I think I'd want something along the lines of maybe telepathy or remote viewing. I feel like that's sort of extra information. If you give me a nice edge in day-to-day life.
Yeah. And for those of you that don't know what remote viewing is, like if you've never seen the movie like Men Who Stare at Goats, it's you in some way, shape, or form go into some sort of meditative state, and this allows you to see places like further away than where you're at, like other rooms or other lands. It's a really cool phenomenon that has been studied by governments for a long time.
The U.S. government specifically has put a lot of money into remote viewing programs.
Absolutely, like that's like the whole time, like in the 60s and 70s and 80s, like the Russian government's like trying to figure out ways to like develop these like psychokinetic abilities or whatever, and like the U.S. government's trying to use remote viewing as ways of trying to spy on other places, like all through like say like Project Stargate that they did in the 1970s, which is a really cool study.
Who did that get shut down under?
That got shut down 1995. I think that is Clinton.
Yeah, I was thinking that might have been Clinton because there were like hearings on that and stuff, right?
Yeah, because I think a lot of it was they were spending a lot of money at the time, and so Project Stargate gets its start, I want to say in the 1970s, maybe the 1960s, when the U.S. government's really trying to see if remote viewing can be used in a way to help the U.S. government, like just in some sort of like application in some sort of way, and all throughout its history, there's inconsistencies in how effective it actually worked. One of my favorites, one of the only stories that I can really think of off the top of my head that it was any sort of help was 1972. There was a Russian bomber. It was a Tu-22 Russian bomber that crashed in like Central Africa somewhere, and the United States government wanted to get their hands on it, and they ended up utilizing remote viewers to try to find it. And the remote viewer's name was Rosemary Smith, I want to say was the name. And she was able to locate where it was, and they sent somebody out, and it was there. Like, she went into this trance and just gave these coordinates, and they went out, and it was there.
Yeah, there's some pretty amazing stuff that can be done with remote viewing.
Yeah. But other than that, after about that, a lot of people that just came forward that just didn't believe in the phenomenon or whatever just wanted to shut it down because we spent millions throughout the course of years on this.
Okay, when it comes to some of these psychic programs, one of the things that's always really surprised me is that when they start doing tests on psychics, often the people who believe they're psychic and are already trying to do something they believe they can do score worse than the people that they just kind of grab from the street the people who believe it's possible but they don't believe they know how to do it.
Yeah, they did that. It was 2007. The United Kingdom comes forward with a test to try to use remote viewers to combat the war on terror. They're going to use remote viewers to see if they can find weapons of mass destruction, and they set up a test with people that claim they were remote viewers, and then they had a control group of people that they just pulled in from the street, and the people that they pulled in from the street scored better in their tests that they set up than the people who were remote viewers.
And I know like some of the government programs too, when they've been interviewing some of the people who conducted the tests, they generally said the same thing, that a lot of the time the people who were just going through the directions on how to do it just simply scored better than the people who believed they already could do it.
Now, I'm not a shill for the government and I'm going to say that I believe everything they say, because keep in mind, if you're a government and you have people that can legit remote view and see things thousands of miles away that can let you see terrorist cells, weapons of mass destruction, or, inside enemy compounds, you're not going to tell people you have these people.
Actually, do you know what I think the ramification of this is? That this is something that everyone can do.
Oh, that ain't if you're trained to it,
basically, if you're someone who comes into it with an open mind and given correct directions, that's something that the average person can do and perfect on their own. That you don't have to be born special to do it. It's just something that anyone can pick up. It would, in effect, it would be not a talent you have to be born with, but a skill that one could perfect.
I think if that was true, I think that, but I do think that is true. I think that the scores on that UK test in the 2007 would have come out differently.
Well, no, that's what they got, because the people that they brought in off the street who were just people coming into it with an open mind.
Oh, yeah.
That's why they scored better, because they weren't already trying to do something they believed they could do.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because the thing is, think about it like this. Someone coming in who's already believes himself to be psychic, they're going to come in with a lot of preconceived notions already. Mm-hmm. So they're already going to be trying to do things. They're probably going to be, to a certain extent, ignoring the directions that they're being asked to do instead of going through the proper steps. That's why I'm thinking maybe this is just something that the average person can access. Do you know there's like classes you can go to on learn how to be a remote viewer?
That's awesome. Where are they at?
Did you really not know that?
I didn't know that.
No, that's totally a thing. They're most of them are kind of located out around California, and there's clubs that you can join where one person will go out and set up an object and then give everyone in the club the coordinates, and then they'll see who can remote view it the fastest and things like that. And a lot of those things go on online. I've never been to one of these schools. I don't do remote viewing, but I always thought that was kind of a real neat thing, that there's this whole community out there around it.
I think one of the coolest things about remote viewing that I like was that everybody does remote viewing differently. Everybody goes in this meditative trance or state differently. Like certain people listen to music, or certain people just meditate naturally. One of the things that most people don't know about the Project Stargate in the U.S. government was they never replaced people in the program. They just kept people from the program, so it just gradually just dwindled down. It was just a couple people. One of the last people that they had in the program, one of the ways that he actually did remote viewing was with tarot cards.
I mean, whatever tool.
Whatever works. I mean, that's one of the cool things about it, is that it's different for everybody.
I don't know why, but when I hear about remote viewing, I think it's real interesting. And when I hear about channeling, I just imagine someone in a YouTube video making weird noises while their kid runs around the background wrecking up their apartment. I don't know why, but I give way more credence to remote viewing than I do channeling.
I think it's just because you don't like loud noises.
I do not like loud noises, no.
Because I think that's one of the things that people have to do, is they start channeling and they start doing these weird stuff, and I'm like, I can't do this.
The weird thing is, I don't even discount all channeling as being made up. I believe that some of it likely could be true, or at least it's not outside the realm of something that could possibly be out there. But it just leaves such a weird taste in my mouth. It's because I always go back to some of the worst channeling videos I've ever seen in my life.
Oh yeah, we've seen some that are pretty weird.
Oh, like I just recently watched one. We were working on the Valiant Thor video for our patrons, and I watched a video where they were channeling Valiant Thor, and I'm like, this is just nuts. This is nuts.
I remember when I did the Arthurius Society video for our channel, and I watched a guy, he channeled Arthurius, who was this alien, and he did it by putting a blindfold over his eyes and humming,
I don't
essentially.
know, that makes sense to me. That makes a degree of sense. I don't know why I have this big double standard when it comes to channeling compared to other psychic phenomena, but I take like a much bigger bite of that salt block right before I talk about channeling.
Yeah. But going back a little bit, when you were talking about having to train to do these, to do some of these abilities, having to take it in that way, I think that has to be true, because I think when you're dealing with any sort of psychic phenomenon, this sort of extrasensory sort of ability, you'd have to train almost to be able to handle that. I mean, I've always felt that when you're thinking about real psychic phenomena, whether or not if you're picking up emotions from people or reading minds or being able to see things from other ways, the amount of information that you would have to process, or the kind of information you have to process, might be pretty terrifying.
Well, I guess it depends on how much can they shut out. Like, if I was, say, a telekinetic, or not telekinetic, or telepathic, and I'm just walking around picking up everything that everyone's thinking all the time, I'm going to lose my mind. There's no way that you could be doing that and be functional. But if it's something that you can kind of lean into and lean out of, even if you can't totally turn it off, I think someone could probably handle that.
Yeah, I mean, they just have to, because I think about how hard it is for us to just handle our own inner demons and our own internal dark thoughts, and just the ability of having to deal with other people's or other places, like those dark emotions, those dark thoughts, those dark feelings. I think that would just overwhelm just the average person. That's why I'm always so skeptical or so resistant to believe somebody who tells me that they have some sort of psychic ability.
I think you'd have to learn how to put up those mental blocks to survive. Oh man, imagine being a channeler without being able to turn it off.
Oh man.
Like there's just other people just constantly jumping into your body. That either that or pyrokinetic, I think, would be the two worst ones you wouldn't be able to turn off.
Yeah, I think that would probably end up with government intervention really quick.
I would imagine, or state intervention for
really,
like a mental health facility or something.
You would just have to.
But yeah, for many of these people to be functional people, I would have to assume there's a degree of being able to shut them off. Do you put like people who can do like some of the really amazing energy working stuff, like in this sort of category?
Like what?
Oh, like being able to affect people's auras or see auras. It's kind of like this one video. I don't remember what it was on. It was on one of the shows where the guy's like, I'm very skeptical of this. I don't believe you can do this. And then she starts messing with his aura, and he's like, I do feel kind of funny, but I don't think anything's going on. But then on the infrared camera, like you can see his body heat kind of moving and stretching and stuff like that.
Like, do I believe that, or do I put that in the same? Do I put that in the same category as like psychics and stuff?
However you want to take it.
I would put that in the same category. I think as psychic phenomena. I think I would put that in the same category. Do I believe it? I think so. I think there are people out there that I think are very, very good at reading emotions and being able to read rooms. And I think I've seen people that have very superhuman abilities to being able to read emotions and affect emotions in people and to read rooms. And I think to a supernatural level, I think that would be the next logical step.
What about something like Reiki? Are you familiar with Reiki?
Reiki?
Yeah, Reiki. Mm-mm. Oh no, it's this, like you can sometimes even get like your doctors to like pay for you to go to Reiki practitioners because it's so effective, where people kind of run their hands over you and kind of focus your energy, and it makes you feel better. He's giving me the world's most skeptical look, but I'm not kidding. This is, I assumed you knew about this, but this is like a big thing. Like you can get your insurance to pay for it.
I am not paying somebody to rub their hands, like hover over me, and then to go say, okay, you're healed.
I mean,
I take my healthcare seriously, so I'm just like,
I'm just saying, I've never been to a Reiki practitioner. As far as I know, it's all bunk, but I'm just saying there are a lot of people who say that this is something that actually works.
I believe in the power of belief, that if you believe you are getting better, you are getting better.
So you think it's all psychosomatic?
I think there is an element to that because I have seen similar studies when it comes to prayer healing. I have seen effects where people who have had people that have come in that have done prayer healings over people genuinely recover faster and get better because of it. I mean, there's no real medical explanation as to why they're getting better.
Yeah, there's a lot of famous studies where they test this sort of thing on prayer healing. But going back to like Reiki, it works off many of the same ideologies that, oh God, what's it called? Where they stick the needle in you.
Oh, acupuncture.
Yeah, like that acupuncture runs off of. That you're using your energy to kind of clear away blocks in your energy to help improve things like blood flow and things like that.
Well, again, it's probably it goes back to what do you believe works. I mean, it's what we talked about in our very first episode when it came to shadow people. Or cleansing areas, and you have Catholic priest, Buddhist monk, and African shaman that's doing 3 very different things, and it seems to work. What's the only commonality? They believe what they're going to do is going to work.
I don't know. I think there's some physiological ties to this one.
No, because I think you can have a physiological change, I believe, if you believe what you're doing is going to work, because there's some strong belief in that, I think.
I mean, like, I think this actually, like, physiologically works beyond belief.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I think either way we're okay. I think either way it's good because people are probably getting better because of it.
You probably don't even believe Mr. Miyagi can warm up his hand and make you feel better.
No, because he's an actor. No, I know.
Great actor.
He is a great actor. I wasn't trying to shatter the illusion of that, but, like, he actually doesn't know martial arts in real life.
No way.
He just took a couple classes. So do you want to get into, like, some of our next thing that we're going to talk about? Like to transition?
Yeah.
So one of the things I had to say that, because you can't, I don't always believe every single person whenever they come forward and tell me that they have some sort of supernatural ability. So one of the cool things that I got to watch was I got to watch a lot of videos by this guy named James Randi. Have you ever heard of this guy?
Yeah.
So James Randi, he had this long-running show, and he had this long-running claim. James Randi was a famous magician, escape artist, and what he did was he had a show where he claimed that he would give you $10,000 if you could come onto a show and perform some sort of supernatural ability. Whether it's psychic phenomenon, telekinesis, aura reading, what have you. He just had to have a few control elements. And I thought this was really cool. And he ran this show for years to the point where it went from $10,000 as the prize to $100,000 as the prize, up to $1 million by the time that he retired. And nobody ever claimed it. Not one person. We have an entire world of people who claim that they have supernatural abilities and all the stuff that we've talked about before, and not one person came forward and collected his money.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of theories out there that paranormal phenomena just doesn't work in a scientific fashion. It just often doesn't pop up when you're trying to do a control. But I guess these are people who are at least showing up believing they can do it.
Now, to be fair, that does sound a little bit like the Invisible Boy from Mystery Man who goes, I can only go invisible, but only if nobody's watching.
Didn't he actually eventually prove that he could go invisible?
Yes, because nobody was watching. Like, I know that's what I'm saying. Like, I brought that up. Like, it's so cool because he debunked a lot. He debunked a lot of people,
and he did a lot of good work.
No, he did. He debunked a lot of. He debunked what was like the famous Magnet Man. There was a guy, this famous spoon bender on the Johnny. I think it was the Johnny Carson show that came on that he showed that as long as you don't let him touch the spoons ahead of time, that he just couldn't do it, and the guy gave up on stage. He debunked guys that claimed they could read auras, psychics that come up, and he would explain cold readings to everybody. Now,
truthfully, he's the type of skeptic I like. He's out there, he's giving people a legitimate shot, and he's not just out there saying everything's owls.
Yeah.
I cannot stand that guy who just says, everything's owls.
Yeah. Nobody, can't be sort of monster. You just saw an owl.
Yeah.
But it was cool because I get that thrown at me a lot when I talk to people about James Randi. So I wanted him to bring it up on this particular episode of the podcast. But I was watching something funny, and he was so funny because he was talking about something about psychics, like people that could claim they could talk to the dead and talk to your past ancestors. And one of the things he brought up was he said, you realize that whenever somebody claims they talk to your dead relatives, that nobody ever's from hell? like every time they pull up your uncle, your Uncle Timmy, that he never goes, well, it's kind of warm down here and I could use a glass of water down here. Like
a lot of people who do, particularly the more dramatic stuff, they're just doing cold reading. Mm-hmm. And for those of you guys who don't know what cold reading is, think about that old Jon Stewart show that was on where he would ask very general questions to a large amount of people.
I'm getting a J, maybe a John. Is there a John in the audience? Is there a John out here? Maybe an S. Smith. Does anybody know a John Smith in their life?
Or like, I think they use this example on maybe South Park.
Yeah.
But like, does November mean something special to you? Because November could be his birthday. It could be the day the person died. It could be just Thanksgiving was an important holiday for you. Just using very general questions to, weed out who's going to respond.
But it was so I go on to his website because he claimed that if there were really people with supernatural abilities, there'd be people lined up out the door to prove this. But then when I went on his website actually says under his things that they get people all the time coming to their facility and they just refuse to see them.
Why would they advertise that?
I know, that's so weird. He says it all the time. He go, well, nobody came forward and nobody claimed it and all this. But actually on his website, he says that they have had people show up with claims that they had abilities that they couldn't test, and other people they just turned away. And they've actually now stopped offering the $1 million reward. Unless you're a psychic, people that they can easily critique or test, but they stopped this test.
I don't know. I don't know what's weirder. The fact that they were turning people away or the fact that they were advertising that on the website that they were doing that. Mm-hmm. And it just seems very odd to me for them to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's just one that makes me think that I think that there are people out there that have abilities, and maybe just for he himself, he's only going to test people that he knows that he can debunk, that he knows how to debunk, because he's always saying, oh, people with these supernatural abilities are just trying to take advantage of these people.
Oh, and he has a stake in it as well, because say if someone comes forward that he can't debunk, his ride's effectively over. His ride only works as long as he can continue to disprove them.
Yeah, and he's making money off of disproving people.
Yeah, although I like him, he's probably not the most objective person in the world, or at least there's definitely conditions out there that would kind of lean his hand to being less objective.
Mm-hmm. But if you do watch some of his stuff, he does have some actually pretty cool people claiming he has some cool abilities that are cool to watch. Okay. So, but I guess with that, we do think there probably are some people out there that actually have some cool, legit abilities, nowadays.
Oh, yeah, there definitely are. When I was doing my research for this, I heard about all sorts of odd abilities that people just naturally possess. And this is less in the realm of people possessing just outside human abilities and more of having natural human abilities to inhuman levels. And do you want to talk about some of them for a little bit?
Yeah, let's do that. I'll do that.
Okay.
Who jumps out at you first?
Okay, the first one that I'd love to talk about is Dean Karnassus. Oh my freaking God. This guy is the world's most insane endurance runner. He did 50 marathons in 50 states in 50 days.
My God.
Just think about that. That would be so intense. At one point, he does 350 miles in 80 hours non-stop. Think about that. That is a inhuman level of endurance right there.
And there's wasn't there videos of people driving up next to him, just giving him food, like rolling up pizzas and just handing it, and he's just eating it as he's going.
One of the conclusions that they came to was due to the way his muscles work, he can just basically keep going as long as he gets. The only limit to his ability to run is the fact he's going to eventually need to sleep. And that's just going to be the point where any of us would need to sleep.
He just has to stop because he's too tired. Yeah, not because of his muscles, just because his brain needs to rest.
And think about that, running for 80 hours straight. That's over 3 days. That's over 3 days of just nonstop running.
I'm still on the mile from high school because I only made 3 laps around the track.
This guy's muscles receive damage differently than normal muscles do, and they repair themselves very quickly. So he can just keep going, and there's no real wear down. Basically, as long as he's eating calories, and when, what you're saying about when they're dropping off food to him, they just pull up next to him and hand him a rolled up pizza like it's a burrito, a whole pizza, and he'll just down it because he needs that many calories to keep running.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine his food budget in order to just to keep him going.
Oh, yeah, it would have to be intense, because think about how many calories you're using up during that time. Like even like weightlifts, like Terry Crews, to maintain his muscles has to eat a lot of extra calories. This guy's calorie intake would have to be way more than that.
All right, if I ever run for president, my energy plan is to just create a giant hamster wheel, and that guy runs on it, just constantly just turning a turbine because he'll never get tired.
And he's not slow either. He can run at like 7 to 10 miles an hour just at an indefinite speed.
I got tired of you just saying that. Yeah.
I mean, the guy's pretty darn amazing. If you were gonna give him a superhero name, what would it be?
Mr. Never Gets Tired. Wah, wah, wah.
Mr. Endurance.
Mr. Endurance. Mr. Stamina.
I'll tell you this. I don't think I would want this superpower. Because it sounds like I'm just going to be doing a lot of running.
Call him overtime.
I just don't want to spend that much time running. It just doesn't sound like...
That doesn't sound like much fun. What's your ability? I just run.
Yeah.
Like, he sounds like the guy from Forrest Gump. Like, what? Like, why are you doing this? I just like running.
Like, another neat guy is Stephen Winkshire. I think I'm saying that name right. I'm going to be screwing up some of them here and there. He has a superhuman visual memory, where he will often take helicopter tours over cities like New York, like in a 2-hour tour, just seeing the town, then sit down and start drawing it. Things like 50-foot long dioramas from memory after a 2-hour helicopter tour of the city with near perfect detail. And I mean, he's drawing the windows on the building sort of stuff.
Could you imagine committing a crime in front of that guy? Like, he would make like the perfect witness for like cops or whatever. But like, not only did he do it, he was wearing a tie with a little chocolate stain, Your Honor, and at the same time, he was also wearing some pants too that had some dirt on the bottom, on the right side specifically.
He can also draw things photorealistic. So like he can recall what someone looked like so detailed that he can just go recreate the drawing and it looks like a photo.
Oh wow!
Also, he's a knight.
How did he get that? How did he become a knight?
Just from his sheer talent. I can't remember the order that he was like brought into, but England knighted him for it.
I knight thee, sir. Probably gonna snitch a lot. Like,
but he mainly travels from town to town doing these amazing art installations and stuff like that.
well, that's cool.
Like, I know he's done London, he's done New York, he did, I believe, San Francisco. He's done a few others. And just imagine being able to take in that much detail from a 2-hour plane tour and then draw a 50-foot long diorama of it that's photorealistic.
Could you imagine how much that must suck to never be able to forget something, though?
Yeah, and I've heard of people who have issues with memory like that, where they just hold on to stuff forever and they can't let it drop.
Like, I mean, I think a lot of times we think a lot about the positive stuff when this could be, but imagine never being able to forget like intricate details of something that bad happening.
Oh
like,
yeah,
or seeing some kind of horror. Like, you never forget that.
Oh yeah, that would probably be the double-edged side of it. I don't know if he gets that side. I think his is mainly attached to visual memory, not so much event-based memory. But still, you could see something traumatic. Mm-hmm. No, I am kind of curious right now if that's something that he personally struggles with or not. Mm-hmm. Would you want this power?
No.
I'm not sure if I would either.
No. One guy that I want to bring up, a guy that I really like, that I've watched since I was a kid, a guy named Wim Hof.
Yeah.
He's known as the Iceman. He's he's the guy that can survive in near like frigid temperatures, wearing like absolutely nothing. He never gets frostbite. He's never gotten hypothermia. Like, I've watched him like on videos where he'll just sit submerged in just buckets of ice, and like other people around that try to take the challenge with him too are out in minutes, and he's just hanging out, just being like, "What's up?"
Doesn't he use that Buddhist breathing technique?
Yeah, like he's got
to
like
help him sustain his body temperature.
Yeah, and there's just videos of him just running through just tundra, just with nothing but just shoes and just a Speedo, and he's fine.
The weird thing is, I didn't know about this guy until you brought him up to me, but I actually did know about this breathing technique because there was a test a long time ago where they brought a group of Buddhists who knew this training, and they put them in a cold room, and they put wet towels on them, and they told them to now begin to do the thing while they lowered the temperature. And after originally they start off shivering, then they kind of stop shivering. Then next thing you know, they're sitting there chatting. There's steam coming off the wet towels and stuff like that.
That's crazy.
That they were actually able to raise the temperature high enough that the whatever device they used to make the room cold could not keep up with the amount of heat that they were giving off. Like that, I don't know how one comes up with a technique like that. That's pretty darn cool.
I think you develop that technique when you are very poor and you need to figure out some way to keep yourself warm.
Okay. This next guy has a power that I think is just absolutely amazing, and I know I'm going to say his
Pronounce
name
that
wrong.
name. Pronounce that name on there.
I think it's Iswa Umachi.
There is no A. Iswa.
Yeah, I think it's Iswa.
ISO.
Okay, I do not speak Japanese, guys. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, we are sorry.
But this guy is freaking amazing. I'm not even gonna beat around the bush. This guy cuts bullets with a katana, like from sheathed. One of his most amazing traits, and they don't really actually understand how this guy does it, is he does the style where it's about a quick draw from the hip. From a sheathed sword, they fired a little tiny BB, moving at 350 miles per hour. And he cut that tiny BB in two with a freaking katana.
I remember watching a documentary where these guys were trying to test like how strong swords were. And
Yeah, Fortune Fire.
No, it wasn't that. And
They do it on that show.
No, I'm not talking about that. Where they put a sword up and they shot a bullet at it, and all these guys ran around behind like this giant bulletproof glass and were like huddled back there for when the bullet was about to go off. And this guy just stands in front of bullets and just cuts them in half. He's like, whatever.
Like, the thing is, they don't understand how he can even perceive the object moving that fast, let alone reach his hand around, grab the sword, draw it, then line up the blade and cut it. It's just this inhuman level of reaction that he has. This guy would do great in baseball.
I think he would too. I think he'd have to watch the trigger finger of the person. I think that if I had to guess even how it probably works, he probably watches it and can react based off that. I'm not saying that's easy.
That might be part of it, but even watching for the trigger.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's easy. Yeah, I'm not saying that's easy. I'm just saying that that's probably how he does it.
And think about it like this. This isn't even just him cutting the bullet. This is him doing it from the sword being sheathed. Think about the reaction time you'd have to have, and even beyond the reaction time, just being able to move your body that quick. And being able to line up a shot like just parallel where it cuts a tiny BB. Those things are small.
That's crazy.
Oh, yeah. The guy... Now, that's a power that I think would be neat, because there's not as many downsides to that.
Unless you miss.
I'm not going to go run around... Actually, I don't know what I'd do with this power. It's just something that'd be cool to have.
Have you ever heard the term practice makes perfect? I'm like, no, failure makes you dead. Like, this, like, how do you warm up to that? Like,
I almost wonder, is this practice? Because they haven't been able to identify, like, a biological trait that makes him do this. Mm. Like, is this just him being... He is a very passionate swordsman. He's broken tons of Guinness World Records. I wonder if he's just that amazing with a sword and that well trained, and that there's probably a degree of natural talent to it as well. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to get in a sword fight with him.
I would not either.
The last one that I prepared for was Victoria Sider, and she has super sight. She can see things like just way beyond the standard person.
Sword of Omens, give me sight beyond sight. Like, she has a built internal Sword of Omens ability.
And you say I make old references.
What?
That's a Thundercats reference.
That's fine. For the people who got that, you're awesome. For the people who don't, learn your history, okay?
But it is a spot-on Thundercats reference, and I do personally appreciate it. But okay, you know, like most people, the best they can get is about 20/20 vision. They say her vision is 22.
That doesn't make sense.
No, normally the first number is the lowered one because you have bad vision.
Uh-huh.
They have to invert it around for her. She can recognize someone by their facial features a mile away from her. It's almost like she has built-in binocular vision. They're still working on understanding why this works. And in all honesty, part of the problem, I think, is that she has her own career totally not connected to this. She has like a passion for becoming a dentist, like totally unrelated to her superpower.
She goes, do you floss? Of course I floss. Oh, really? My superhuman sight tells me otherwise, little Jimmy.
But one of the things we do know is that women are way more likely to have like these very advanced sort of eyes where they can, I think it's an extra rod some women can possess. And they believe that some women can actually, in their time, like a small percent of less than a percent of people would have this. Where they can even detect some minute colors the rest of us can't see, which I think is a really interesting idea. But just think about that, being able to recognize things like facial features from a full mile away. like being able to read detail like that. And she can also write super tiny, not the most amazing superpower, but she can compress writing to where she can handwrite 10 pages of typed information on one page.
Can you imagine being a parent having that ability? Like if you're, or like if you're a kid, like if you had a parent that, like if your parent had that ability, your mom could see you from a mile away watching what you're doing. Like you're acting up, and all of a sudden you get a text message, and your mom's just like, "I could see you," and you're just like, "Where's she at?" She's everywhere.
Truthfully, out of all the superpowers we've talked about on this part, that's probably the most useful one. Just being able to spot things like that and be able to see things in incredible detail.
How often do you think she's heard the joke? Did you see that coming?
I'm wondering if this actually helps out with her dentistry.
That's what I'm saying. I just said that like kids are lying to her. They're saying they floss, and she can I can see between your teeth, kid. I know you're lying.
She doesn't even need that mirror thing. Mm-hmm. She just kind of looks around.
Just looks in it.
So open your mouth. 12 cavities.
just walks away.
God, that's a high number. That's a high number to just throw out there.
You just gave that kid a bad day.
Oh goodness.
Oh.
So, superpower. If you could have one, what would you want?
I would want the ability to turn invisible, and then what I would do is I would find a mime, and then beat him up, because he would get so much money because people would believe he is really talented.
I think I would want magic.
Magic?
Yeah, I'm going to do the cop-out answer and pull Doctor Strange. I just want a bunch of powers.
No, that's how you get burned at the stake. That's how I end up in Vegas. That's what I'm saying. Like me with some other duo person.
You know, I'm kind of surprised that didn't come up during this video. I was talking about people who claim to have magical powers.
I thought we were talking about real stuff. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. That's a hard one. That probably takes its own podcast in general doing that.
And it probably would. It's one of those things where you don't hear about it as much. Like you hear about people who possess abnormal abilities. Like there's a lot of ones we didn't bring up. Like a lot of people know about the magnetic guy. He's not actually magnetic, but he can make metal kind of stick to him because he has a suction to his skin. Mm-hmm. But people know about that. People know about that there's these government psychic programs and things like that. But you don't really ever hear anybody talking about people who supposedly possess magical power.
Well, I think for a lot of people, I think there's a religious element to that, and I think it makes it private for a lot of people that they don't want to walk around talking about it. I also think there's kind of a stigma that goes around in a lot of places too with it too that probably makes some people uneasy.
Yeah, just something that popped in my head where I'm like, I wonder why we didn't bring this up.
We'll have to talk about this in its own podcast, absolutely for sure, because that's gonna get deep real quick.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us for the free segment of our show.
I think we've talked about a lot today, and this has been a lot of fun. But for now, guys, keep believing,
because we'll keep listening. And if you don't want this segment to end just yet, you can join us for some grade A pillow talk today. Just go over to our Patreon, sign up, and we get into some of the weird stuff, some of the crazier stuff. We even sometimes revisit old things that we've talked about and try to put a fresh new spin on it. So I really hope you guys check it out and get the full episode starting today.
And today we're going to talk about Camp Hero, and it's a super cool story, isn't it, Vic?
It is a great story. It's so great. It was the inspiration for Stranger Things.
Yeah, I didn't know that going in looking at the story of Camp Hero. And if you guys have never heard it before, the real quick gist of it is in 1942, the U.S. government created a radio tower in Montauk, New York out there. Okay, it was a great location for it, and they set up this big radio tower with these guns, and it's supposed to be this lookout area for the entire East Coast.
And it wasn't just a regular gun. That's a big gun.
Yeah, they were big guns. They were protecting. They were fierce. They were not kidding around. And so the radio part of it wasn't actually built. It wasn't even finished until about the 1960s. That's one of the weird parts of the story. But anyway, beside that, so the legend goes is that shortly after the end of World War II, the U.S. government recruits ex-Nazi scientists into our government, in order to start doing weird, bizarre research projects